right, what's up? And today we're going to be doing another movie comm, and we're going to be watching The Batman with Robert Pattinson. And it's a long movie, so we're going to get started. We're watching this on HBO Max. So for those of you guys that want to follow along, you can press play. I'm at 10 seconds right now where the Warner Brothers sign is. So press play in 3, 2, play. So I really got to say that right off the bat, I actually dig the red and black theme, actually, because the red and black theme, first of all, it's badass because um, it kind of resembles, at least to me, to a certain extent, it resembles Batman animated series, which is very iconic to me. And then right away, it's like you didn't have anything fancy titles or anything like that. All you had was the letters, and that was it. And straight into so nothing really fancy. So it just goes to show you. Plus, it would be a waste of time, because this is nearly 3 hours long. So that's another thing to consider. Making a movie like this, it's like, yeah, it makes sense. And then you're looking through the window over here through this person's eyes. You don't know who this is, and you're looking in there, and you're like, "What's somebody in there?" And he's armed with a tell very much. And somebody else walks in, and it actually looks like he's got rid of that guy. Then you notice that that they're basically playing. And then this entire theme right here with that is very kind of sets the tone for the rest of the movie. It's obviously Riddler's theme. That's another thing you've got to take into effect as well, is the fact that is the Riddler's theme. And it's Halloween, and that's another thing. We've had Batman movie that played on Christmas, that took place on Christmas. So that's always good. Again, perfect for this film in terms of the setting, in terms of the tone, and just everything. Perfect. Then over here, this gentleman over here is looking at the news. And upon watching it, it's like there's some politics going on. That the one person thinks is fine. And then you see that somebody is there. So you got kind of like a horror theme going on. This is the Riddler, but not in full form. Just like Selena Kyle in this film. Still the Riddler, but in terms of the overall look, and that would come later on. I wouldn't be surprised that if in the second movie, or if they do a whole trilogy, which is cool, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually end up doing like thing to where the Riddler is always part of everything, because of the fact that he was is tied into the. I think that's important. Then you see here that, like, I actually really respect the fact that they went possible R rating. I, for one, can certainly respect. And it goes to show that if you don't have to, don't have to, it doesn't have to be crazy violent, but just duct tape is also duct tape a lot. Actually, it's one of the first things that we actually heard in the first original announcement trailer. Duct tape. Heard a lot of duct tape. So, duct tape is the name of the game at this point. And there he is, just Riddler doing what he's doing. And it's kind of scary. Like the whole costume and everything is pretty damn scary. And then finally we get a little narration from Bruce himself, Rorschach style. And I wonder what people's opinion about Robert Pattinson's voice as Batman is. It's almost as if he's whispering in a sense, which makes complete sense. And it's kind of like what Michael Keaton did to a certain extent, if you think about it. And then basically at this point, it's known that he's been doing this for 2 years. And how he's got to be really careful about the targets that he chooses and be methodical. So at this point, we're known right away that he's not an experienced Batman. It would be a while before he got to the point to where it would be a while before he got to the point to where he would eventually it would be a while before he got to the point to where he would actually be able to walk into a room full of 12 people and be able to take them out without getting a scratch on him. This obviously takes place in today's time because of that cell phone. A bunch of gang members with paints and stuff like that. And you got this one guy over here where his face is half painted because I guess he's not an official full-on gangster member yet. And what's cool is that you see Bruce putting on everything, including the makeup. And I love that line where he basically says, when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call, it's a warning. And somebody over here just committed a crime, but he sees the signal in the sky, pauses, and then he even looks like in the shadows where he can't see much of anything, like on the other end of that shadow, and they're really paranoid. It's like, I don't know if I want to go over there because and he gets hit by a car in the process too. Because it's like, they see the light and they're like, oh crap. So he's made a difference, but at the same time he starts to realize that it's not enough. If you hear any noise in the background, it's because I'm also like taking a few sips of water here and there, so I apologize. I try to make these comms as clean as possible, and I always play around with the settings to see if I can improve, but I do my best. But ultimately, here's a guy getting off the train, and I guess this half painted faced guy is supposed to do something to this guy, I guess. I don't know if he's supposed to hurt him or whatever he's supposed to do. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's 7 people, or more than 7 people, going up against one person. Now, what's cool about this scene coming up here is that they hear Batman coming. and they see it from the shadows. I mean, they see the shadows, but they don't see anything yet. But they hear Batman coming because of his footsteps. Now later on, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like to where you won't even hear or see him coming. But that's kind of nice, though. I mean, for the movie effect, it's very interesting, but still. And they obviously probably think that he's wearing a Halloween costume. Like, what are you supposed to be? And get a nice little, some nice punching action going on. And he gets the answered question. He's like, I'm vengeance. And now he's got to take on all the other guys. And I've got mixed feelings about this suit, by the way. I wanted to address that because, like, I know for Robert Pattinson, like Robert Pattinson himself, and in terms of the tone of the movie, it fits. It fits well in terms of, like, just the overall look and everything else. But um, as Batman uses a little bit of electrocution to take this guy out, um, but I have mixed feelings about this suit, specifically the bottom part. Like once you get below his belt, you know, got some mixed feelings about that. The top is okay, and then you get the cowl and then behind the cowl, which is interesting, but I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about this suit, but at the same time, I'm reminding myself that this is year 2 and it's a detective noir story and there's going to be evolution of the character. And when you have evolution of the character, it means that you are going to have a change possibly in the suit. Not a guarantee, but a change. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up changing the second or third suit. We'll see. And then over here, Commissioner Gordon is pretty much taking Batman with him in order to investigate this crime scene. And all the cops, this is Batman's point of view right here. It's like, you see the cops just looking at him. And they're like, you brought this guy, and they're all just looking at him. So, but Gordon says he's with him, so they don't do anything, except one guy goes to stop him. And he's like, are you kidding me, sir? You're going to let him in here? And he's like, Martinez, let him through. And he lets him through, of course. And Robert Pattinson, I don't know if it's the suit or the boots or whatnot, but he's pretty tall. He's significantly taller than those other guys, but not like, 6'4" tall or anything. I think Robert Pattinson is like 6'2", which is actually comic book accurate with Batman. Batman in the comics is 6'2". Ben Affleck is 6'4". He's the tallest Batman we've ever had. And then Michael Keaton was actually, I believe, the smallest Batman. But that didn't stop him from being good, despite the fact that he didn't have very much screen time and the fact that, his films were very specifically focused on the villains, unfortunately. But in due time, in the Flash movie, we'll get to see. And I like how Batman kind of fills in the blanks here and there and tells these guys a few things that they can't see or they can't tell. So, and he basically tells them he was alive when it was cut off. Like, look at the wound. So, again, at this point, I don't think he's obviously a detective, but he's not the world's greatest detective at this point. That's not known, especially among the cops and everything else, because that doesn't happen until later. I think later on he ends up turning into the greatest detective. And one thing that this film does very well is that Batman gets a lot of screen time, which is probably the and it's got nothing to do. I don't think it has as much to do with the runtime. I mean, yes, the runtime certainly helps, but at the same time, again, like what was it? The Dark Knight was like 2.5 hours long. So let's say this movie is 30 minutes longer than The Dark Knight, and I am willing to bet that Robert Pattinson's Batman time, his screen as the Batman is more than 3 times as much as Christian Bale's was in The Dark Knight. And yes, I know that he didn't have to deal with the Joker, you know, because Heath Ledger and the Joker and all that stuff. I get it, but again, when you're looking at Batman's time, it's incredible. And the thing is, like, the film is literally called The Batman, so it makes sense. So, and again, this letter from the Riddler to Batman is literally addressing the Batman. He's like reaching out to him. And then he just he just solved the riddle right there. He's like, the riddle, he lies still. What does a liar do when he's dead? He lies still. Lots of stuff like that. And I've always like the tone of this film is just literally like, I really like what they did with it. I will say that it's not just the darkest Batman film, but it's like it just fits so damn well with everything they do in this film. Everything, like with the characters, with the dialogue, with one set to another, and everything like that. Like seriously, it just fits. Everything fits so well. And then you get this scene right here to where you see a child, which kind of resembles Robin or Dick Grayson in a sense. And he's looking at him, which reminds him of what he was like when he was a child, like when he had tragedy happen to him. Lots of intensity on his eyes, and that's another thing. I'll give Pattinson credit for that. Very expressive with his eyes, which is important. I think Michael Keaton showed that off extremely well as as Batman. Bale did it pretty well as in the first film as well, but ultimately, um, like I really like what Pattinson does with that. And as a year two Batman, you know, you gotta keep that in mind when watching this film, is that he's only on his second year. This isn't year one, this is year two. So he's got a lot to learn. And despite the fact that he may not be doing having much of an effect, he's pushing himself. But he's kind of going about it the wrong way, which he finds out at the end of the film. But we'll get there when we get there. And then the Batcave itself is like an entrance. It's like a subway, an old abandoned subway entrance, I guess, that leads to the Batcave. But there are bats though. That's the one thing though. There are bats. And it's quite different than what we've been getting before. But again, at the same time, I think it's going to be um I think there's plenty of room for that to evolve as well. And then you see a few pieces of gear. like the contacts that are that's basically like a computer with recording and everything like that. That's I like that quite a bit. And you literally see everything, and then he writes everything down in a journal, which is kind of good. Very very interesting. Like every single day, and it's October of year two, so that means there's a year one book journal somewhere. And then of course he's keeping an eye on the news and everything while kind of trying to study and solve the riddle. And go figure, the film starts literally 20 years to the day of when Bruce's parents were slain. And then Alfred comes in. Who also helps him solve a lot of the riddles. A lot of things, you know, two heads are better than one. And that's nice. I mean, literally everything that he sees is recorded and all that stuff. So it's good that we're getting some bat tech. And eventually, I think in the second film, we're going to get more, which in and of itself is actually very exciting because his, like, the way they're approaching it in this film, starting with this film, is actually pretty subtle, but it packs a punch. It's simple, but yet it packs a punch. Because this is very very different than any Batman film that came before it, but yet familiar. And I like what he says here. What he's doing, what I'm doing is my family's legacy. He's like, if I can't change things here, if I can't have an effect, then I don't care what happens to me. And that's what Alfred's afraid of. And then he just tells him straight up, he's like, stop, Alfred, you're not my father. And he's like, I'm well aware. Again, a much darker relationship between the two. And remember, this is year two. And then, of course, Alfred notices that Bruce was looking at the kid, which reminds him of him and which Alfred knows and completely understands. And you can see it in his face and in his eyes. And then, of course, he's looking at the riddle. And Pattinson worked out for this role, obviously, and he's natural. He didn't certainly doesn't look like he took anything, but he's definitely definitely natural, and he's put on some weight for the role, which is good. Nothing huge, but he looks capable. That's the thing. It's like he looks capable, but he's not like huge like some of the other actors we've seen playing Batman. Well, granted, they weren't quote unquote huge either, but they did some training. Like Ben Affleck did training, um, Christian Bale did training, and they else played Batman that did. Obviously, Pattinson, and might be somebody else that I'm just trying to think of, but I can't. No, we've only had Bale and then Affleck and then Pattinson. I think I could be missing somebody, but no, I don't think so. I think those are the only guys that trained for Batman. Because before that time, it was just different. And then we see here the computers, and we're trying to decode or decipher this riddle. And then we see the words drive. And of course, here we go, right back into Batman again. So we're like, what are we? We are 25 minutes into the film, and we've seen Batman twice. This is the second sequence to where we see him. And he's working directly with Gordon, right next to him. And Gordon just told him, he's like, I don't even know who you are, man. It's been 2 years and I don't even know who you are. And I'm like, and I'm sure Batman was thinking, good, let's keep it that way. Because he doesn't, obviously Batman doesn't want anybody to know who he is, even Gordon. And of course, they found the car that they were looking for. They're looking for a thumb drive. And they're looking for a USB port. And they found something with a severed thumb right on the end of it. Thumb drive. And again, his words are very very soft. Like Batman is talking very, very softly, and it's like again, it's very different than what we're used to, especially with what Bale did. And then obviously with Ben Affleck, it was very interesting because he had like a voice modulator, which was very smart. I remember, I think Kevin Smith ended up talking. I don't know if Kevin Smith actually talked to Zack Snyder about that as an idea, or I don't know if it was before Zack Snyder implemented as like, yeah, they should do a voice modulator, voice manipulator, or something like that. And again, I like how Pattinson basically maintains his intensity in the scene pretty much no matter what. And at this point, he's like, "Yep, the cops will never get into the Iceberg Lounge without a warrant." And he's just looking at the computer, and he's like, "Yeah." So that means he's gonna go in there. His cape is also slightly shorter, by the way, in case you haven't noticed. And this is a good scene right here. You know who I am? He's like, "Yep, I got an idea." He goes to the front door. He's like, "I want to see the Penguin." He's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, dude." He closed the door right on him. And then the door reopens again, and there's two of them. They're both twins. And I love this part. He's like, "There's no penguin here. Get out of here, freak. You hear me?" Or that suit's gonna get full of blood. He's like, "Mine or yours." And he quickly takes those two guys out very easily and just walks right in. And I love that line too, by the way. He's like, "Better get out of here, or that suit's gonna be stained full of blood." And he's like, "Mine or yours." I love that. And then of course they're chasing after him, so it's still fairly realistic to where it's like, yeah, you're just not going to knock these guys down and walk in there. They're going to chase after you or whatnot. So, and then you see this little club right here, this Iceberg Lounge Club, and then of course they try to attack him again, and again he takes them out, and then a whole bunch more people join in, and you see Batman takes his hits, and I absolutely love about that. And there's obviously with the red theme as well. I love the red theme, and it's dark and it's red, um, and then you got Batman doing what he's doing. Again, very capable, taking his hits, but for the most part, he does his damage as well. He gets hit from behind as well, and he's able to even use his weapons from the thugs that he picked off of if he has to. So, and thankfully, that suit can take some punishment. A little bit of grapple action to take that guy down, and then here comes Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot out of nowhere, played by Colin Farrell. And you can't tell it's Colin Farrell unless you were to know Colin's eyes. But and the makeup John that they did with him is incredible. And of course, he's showing pictures to Oz. And then this is when we first start to, and this is when we're first introduced to Selena Kyle, who ends up being Catwoman later on. Well, not in this film, but you get the point. She has a transition to make in this film as well, played by Zoe Kravitz. And Zoe really gets the physicality of Selena Kyle, Catwoman, and obviously her character is going to continue to make a transition as time goes on, but even more so when even more so, I think, in the second film. And she's got that Catwoman walk just perfectly down. Like when you look at how Catwoman walks in like Batman Arkham City, for instance, it's like spot on. And Oz pisses Batman off. He gets his head slammed against the mirror behind him. A nice, good little effect. And then at this point, he's telling him, he's like, "You know who I am?" He's like, "Yeah, do you?" So he's basically trying to tell the Batman at this point, it's like, what people do here ain't got nothing to do with me. So trying to look into the mayor's murder. And at this point, he sees through the picture, he sees the boots, which are similar boots to what Selena Kyle wore in that scene. So that gives him an opportunity to basically go after her to look into more things and to see if there's any sort of ties in with it. Because Batman is all about finding clues. Like no matter what clue it is, no matter how small, he can literally turn that clue into a puzzle solved. Really. And I like how it goes back and forth to where he has to literally like go through the motions of finding answers to whatever it is that he's looking for. So, and how he actually goes over those answers as opposed to it just being a movie to where it's like it skips over that, but it doesn't. It doesn't skip over that. And over here, she's on her way home, and she lives with somebody, and basically at this point they want to, they want to leave. They want to leave Gotham. So, and I really like the fact that they're displaying just how rough Gotham is. Like legitimately rough. Like not a place you want to live. Very, very much the opposite of Metropolis and full of crime and all that kind of other stuff. And it's like you can't everywhere you walk to or everywhere when you're thinking about going out, it's like you always have to think of you know all of what could happen. So that's why Batman plays the role that he does. And again, we go for and I love how they switch from like him like in the same night taking the costume off and then putting the costume back on for whenever he needs to do whatever he needs to do. So when he goes from one place to another, he's traveling as Bruce Wayne, but he's still disguised because he's Bruce Wayne. So he he's not Batman, but he puts a mask over his face so that way people don't recognize him as Bruce Wayne. And at this point, you realize that she was wearing a wig the whole time, and then she's actually got shorter hair, which is pretty much spot on to the comic book Selena Kyle. She's got shorter hair, and then she's wearing this really tight outfit. But of course, no, she's not Catwoman. She loves cats and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, but she's not. She's Selena Kyle. She's not Catwoman yet. She hasn't made that transition. But when you look at how she got down from the building and everything like that, it's like, yep, that is very, very Catwoman. It's like she's all but there at this point. So when she officially makes that transition, I think a lot of fans are going to be really happy with the second film. Like if she is in the second film, you know, when you do see her and if she's made a full transition, I think that's something that I think a lot of fans would be happy with, because the subtle things that are revealed in this film are they're nods to the character, which I think a lot of Catwoman fans could appreciate. Even when you're looking at a scene like this where she's kind of just going into a crime scene right here from the top of the ceiling of the roof or whatnot and trying to steal something. Again, very Catwoman-esque. It's not wrong. And she finds the safe and then she tries to get in the safe in order to retrieve something. But it's actually not for her own personal profit. It's to help her friend or whatnot that's living with her. So again, doing what she needs to do. And she eventually ends up getting in. Then we get a little fight scene over here because she just definitely didn't expect Batman. And she's using martial arts, which is good to see. And her style is very different than his. Lots of quick, flashy movements and a lot of kicking. And again, really, fits the character very well. And what she got was a passport, and now he's looking at it and he's trying to get it back, but he's trying to get more intel. So at this point, a cop walks in, but they have to be quiet. And is it Martinez? Or no? Oh, we can't tell. But I don't think it's Martinez. So at this point, she's basically telling me, "Nope, I didn't kill anybody. I'm just here for a friend." And she's trying to leave, and that's her passport. And it's like, what does your friend know? You won't even tell me. So at this point, maybe if Batman goes with her and then they can talk to her together, and then of course he gives her the passport. So, and he's making it well aware that he's spying on her. Like he knows that she seemed upset back at that place. And they both use bikes to get from where they need to where they need to go. So Batman's main transportation for the most part in this film is a bike. Although later on you get to see something else. But somebody, I guess, broke in, and now Annie's gone. But there's a lot of cats in the apartment. Speaking of cats, the neighborhood stray that's been living in our area for a long time was being really affectionate with me, like the other day, like really affectionate. I wanted to let him in, but somebody else in the household is allergic, so couldn't, unfortunately. But that was like the most affection that cat ever showed me. So it's like I really wanted to let him in. Plus, I like black cats. What kind of cats do you guys like? But I like cats. I like both cats and dogs, but anyway, she's got like 3 cats and she has a thing for strays. And of course, we got Riddler on the news. And he basically says that he's not done, even though he got rid of the mayor on Halloween night. And then there's a guy right there. And at this point, he's basically saying he's going to keep getting rid of people. And basically, what he wants to do is basically make the whole city aware of the truth. And at this point, even Batman doesn't know the truth. But yeah, there's definitely a handful of horror elements in this film, which worked very well for the film, and rightfully so. Not just because it's the darkest Batman film, but in terms of the tone. They really went they really went like as close to an R rating as they possibly could. This film proves that you don't need to have an R-rated Batman film. So Matt Reeves and company are doing a really good job of walking that fine line. And another callback, she's actually drinking milk. Can't go wrong with a good glass of milk every so often. And at this point, he needs her help on the whole case for a friend. Hmm. And she's got like 4 cats. You got a lot of cats, and she's like, I got a thing for strays. And he's telling her, you're not safe here. And she's like, I can take care of myself. But yeah, lots of Batman so far. I mean, we're so far into the picture and we've gotten a shit ton of Batman and we're still getting more Batman. I don't think another thing is I don't think we've seen Batman consecutively on screen in terms of minutes until we don't see him for a little bit, like until this film. Like we see so much of him, which is great, which is awesome. And that he's getting a lot of love in the film as well. Like there's a lot of focus on the character, which again gives Pattinson even more credit. Like I think in this film alone, he puts in more time than Keaton did in the first 2 films. I shit you not. And then again, they're talking about Riddler, and then with the whole rat poison thing, and again, there's more. There's another riddle right there with a question mark. And more pictures and a lot of corruptions. That's the thing about Gotham too. There's also a lot of corrupt cops. And then at this point, he's just basically telling them, maybe this guy's not who you thought. A cop who crossed the line. And another letter to the Batman. Like direct communication. He sees Batman as the good guy, and he's right, but he also misreads him a little bit. So want to know the name? Just look inside and see. Might spoil the chemistry. Follow the maze until you find the rat. Bring him to the light, and you'll find where I'm at. But at this point, he's got more riddles to solve. And now Catwoman gets a little piece of his technology. So she's got the eye contacts now and a new wig. And then she's like, "You really don't care what happens to me?" And then he just kind of looks at her. Then he looks in her eyes. Looks good. And then he gives her the earpiece so that way they can communicate. And she's risking her life going in there, and she thinks that he doesn't give a shit about her. Because, of course, he hasn't really shown any emotion or anything like that, just subtle things with his eyes, if anything. But he's Batman. He can't really, even if he did feel something, he can't show it. So, but the relationship does grow between the two in kind of a almost like a realistic sort of way. Like not realistic as in like the well, like the cliche Hollywood thing. It's like it's not all sunshine and rainbows in terms of their relationship in this film. It's rocky, which I can personally appreciate because it's more realistic. Relationships are rocky; they're not perfect, especially under circumstances like this. They're not perfect. They're not meant to be perfect. They're not supposed to be perfect. And perfect is boring. So the thing is, when you have a rocky relationship or a back and forth sort of thing, and with a whole bunch of question marks in the middle, it makes it a hell of a lot more interesting. Not just for the viewer in a movie like this, but just in general. Like when you have couples or potential couples that have this kind of rocky relationship or an off and on relationship or whatever the deal is, it's actually pretty interesting when you come to think about it. And that's actually where a lot of growth happens for the people. Like if you think about some of the relationships that you've ever had with anybody, it's like the rocky ones are the ones that were, not perfect, are the ones that you learn the most from. And that's what I kind of pick up upon all this. And again, we're getting a little bit more of a view of the technology behind everything. That when Batman sees somebody clearly, it displays their name, which is pretty cool. And at this point, they're kind of having a back and forth. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, who was that?" And he looks like it was the DA. But he needs her to look back at him, and she's like, "I can't. If I do, I have to go over there and all that stuff." But she looks anyway. She does it for him. And yep, it's the DA indeed. And half the D that's and half the DA's office. And for the most part, up until a certain point, she's actually doing what he asks, which is great. But she's only going to take so much. So, and it's very interesting at this point. Like, and I like how she's playing it. She's playing it like someone who, like, she's good. She's playing it like someone who's just a girl's like, "Hey, aren't you the DA? I've seen you on TV." So, and that's good. If you're going to play Catwoman, you got to be able to play multi characters, and you got to be able to switch them on the fly. So that's good. And I guess the drug in this movie is like the drip or whatever. So, and he's obviously wasted. And he's telling her how the Riddler is basically shaking things up. And they're like, what's he talking about when he's referring to the rat? And at this point, he can't really say much, but he still kind of does. And there was an informant, apparently. and talking about the Maroney case. And this is gold for Batman at this point. And then they mention a Russian girl, and then bam, gets her interest right away. She doesn't care anything about the Russian, except for the Russian girl at this point, because she got kidnapped and she wants to know. And looking for a friend, so he can't stay with the DA. And this is interesting right here. And then Penguin breaks it up, and then right behind him, you got Carmine Falcone. Well, they call him Falcone in this film, but in other films it's Falcone. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's the proper way to pronounce it, maybe it's not. But and John Turturro really plays it like, usually you're used to John Turturro like being like really comedic and stuff like that in a lot of the roles, but in this film he's kind of intimidating because he talks softly, but at the same time he doesn't, he doesn't need to yell or whatnot, because his actions and everything else speaks louder. So he does a good job in this film. Actually, you don't see the comedian John Turturro one bit, not one bit. And at this point he thinks that she has a relationship with Carmine Falcone. There is a relationship, but not the way he thinks about it. So, and at this point she gets pissed off with him, and then and she basically takes off all the shit, so that way he's not in her ear, he can't see what she sees. So, but she still has the tech though, so it's basically a way for them to communicate if they ever need to, which they do later on, but she still has the tech. And the DA is pretty much really wasted at this point. And then something's going to go down because, well, Mr. Riddler is already in his car. Well, you don't know it's the Riddler just yet, but it's got to be him, right? So, and it is. And he's wasted. He's not even supposed to be driving, but he is. And then, of course, you get a little bit more horror element stuff over here to where he just, he's right there behind him. And it's the Riddler. And he uses his tool to basically knock him out, in which you mostly don't see. You get an overhead view, and then he just passes out right on the wheel, of course. And then the Riddler uses his duct tape. Duct tape at this point is Riddler's best friend. And you get to see some, but it's blurry, so it leaves a lot to the imagination. And then you see some beeping. And again, horror movie element type of stuff, which you never really expect to see from Riddler, but they made it work for this film. Which, again, overall, I can say I approve. And then Gordon, of course, we see Gordon again, and he goes up to where he usually meets the Batman in this specific area. I think they got the bat symbol there too, I believe. Maybe. I have to look. Yes. And then he turns it off because it's dawn. Then, of course, Batman is there the whole time. And the relationship between these two, it's pretty damn good. I mean, it doesn't even have to, like, it's already happened. This isn't year one, so they know each other, and the fact that uh they're very that they're very much in tight, and he like Gordon trusts this guy despite the fact, and he trusts Gordon, but at the same time he's not going to tell him who he is. Obviously nobody could know the Batman's identity. It's like one of his greatest weapons is the fact that nobody knows who he is, and at the same time nobody suspects who he is. Nobody's going to suspect that Batman is Bruce Wayne. It's not the way it works. That's part of the whole mystique in the persona. So basically they're talking about everything. You know, this is deep shit with politicians, the police, everything. And of course, he's reviewing the tapes because everything's recorded. And at this point, we see him dressed as Bruce Wayne, like with a suit and tie. And at this point, Alfred is kind of happy. He's like, is Bruce Wayne actually making a public appearance? So, and he's doing it for Riddler. He's like, Riddler might not be able to resist. And then he's been working on the latest cipher. And then Rat with Wings. And then he's got the Wayne cufflinks. That Alfred's got the Wayne cufflinks that are on him and that were given to him by Thomas Wayne. And he reminds Bruce of that. He's like, you're a Wayne? He's like, your father gave these to me. Oh. And then this is the nice little car over here that you see Bruce Wayne driving. And then people are even saying what the Riddler's saying: no more lies, no more lies, no more lies. So again, the city of Gotham is a character in and of itself. So the people that are in Gotham also make part of that character. So again, it fit the tone very well of the film. And of course, Carmine Falcone is there, which catches Bruce's eye. And then he's thinking that Selina's with him, but no, not. Similar attire, but it's not. He thinks it's Selina because of the leather boots, but it's not. In which he's about to find out. And the thing is about this Bruce Wayne, it's like there's not much difference between him and the Batman at this point. Basically, Batman without the suit, which I would say is a mistake, but it could be a thing of a transition of character. So. And then right now they tell the story about how Bruce's father saved his life. He got shot in the chest, and Bruce's father, who's a doctor, Thomas Wayne, saved his life. And he did it at his doorstep. And the kid saw it all from the stairs, from upstairs looking down. And Bruce is like, yeah, he took the Hippocratic Oath. And then Carmine is basically just kind of laughing about that. He's like, the Hippocratic Oath. So Carmine basically tries to convince Bruce later on that his father was kind of like a part of the criminal thing, and it's like, and then at the end of the day, Alfred basically tells Bruce like, no, your father was a good man. Like, if anybody knows the Waynes more than anybody, even more than Bruce himself, it's Alfred. And again, it gives Alfred a very pivotal role in this film because he he's the one who knows the truth about his parents even more than Bruce. Like, Alfred is like a wealth of knowledge about the city as well as Bruce's own family. Because Bruce only knew his family until he was 8 years old, which was how old he was when they got slain. So Alfred knew them for years beforehand. So at this point, this politician lady right here, who actually wants to clean up the city, been trying to reach Bruce, but he hasn't called her back. And his family's been known for philanthropy, and he's basically not doing anything, or he hasn't done anything. So she's basically like, she's asking for his help because, but the thing is, obviously, nobody knows that Bruce is Batman. And if they did know he was Batman, I don't think anybody would say a damn word. So, and in this scene right here, Bruce spots the kid again, except this time he's not Batman, but he's still looking at him and everything. So, can very much relate. And to some other people, Bruce Wayne is a celebrity. It's like Martinez, the cop's like, hey, Mr. Wayne. And at this point right here, in terms of the way the way Bruce is portrayed, it's almost like he's definitely a recluse, but some people might actually think that he's like a drug addict or something, and rightfully so, because he kind of he kind of gives up that vibe a little bit. I mean, you could tell he's not getting any sun. He just stays at home all the time and probably just doing a lot of drugs. I mean, that's what the people on the outside that don't know Bruce would assume. And we get a car crashing the party over here, and of course Bruce immediately goes to save the kid, and rightfully so. And it's the DA in his own car with duct tape and a cell phone and an explosive basically around his neck. So, and then the cops show up and they're like telling the guy to get out of the car. And then they see it's the DA. So, and they can see that a phone is going off and people are scared because they think the whole place is going to blow up because of the phone. And again, he shows his shirt, and it's like, boom, it's another letter for the Batman again. So basically, everybody has to clear the room. And it's been hours because now it's nighttime. And the phone, of course, is still ringing because it's waiting for Batman. And of course, Batman shows up in the same way that he did earlier, to where you can start to hear his footsteps. And then he shows up there. And none of the cops know that he's going to be there. Like, none of the cops know that he's there already. Not yet, not until he shows up. So, and at this point, they're wondering, like, what the hell is he looking at? You just can't see him yet, but Batman's footsteps are There he is, appearing out of nowhere. And I love that. Nice little entrance, very subtle. But it's Batman. And even the cops that had got their guns in there are like, holy shit. That's nice. Like a cop was like literally having his sights aimed down with the ACOG or whatnot, and then bam, sees a Batman figure and he's like, oh shit. And at this point, time to answer the call. So at this point, he's looking at the lock and he's like, that's a combination. He's like, don't do that unless you want to keep your head. So I'm going to look at the little note over there. Another riddle, probably. Yep. So he's like, I'm just a phone call away. Answer the phone. So and he answers, and here we go. You got a little video call between the Riddler and the Batman. And at this point, Riddler's like, nope, I'm nobody. And he's like, I'm just an instrument. And I'm like, you know, he just wants to unmask the truth about this cesspool that we call a city. He's like, unmask? He's like, yeah, let's do it together. Like, I've been trying to reach you. And apparently Batman's a part of this, and he's wondering how he's a part of this. He's like, you'll see. And at this point, Riddler is like streaming everything, and he's like, say hello to my followers. So right now, at this point, he's going to ask Mr. Coulson 3 questions. You know, he's got to answer to. So and Riddler is not just necessarily a comedic guy. He's actually quite funny and quite troubled, so to speak. So the actor that's playing him just did a great job. Perfect. And you kind of get to see where Riddler comes from, like towards the end of the film. Doesn't justify what he's doing, but still, you get the point. So here we go with some puzzles. He's like, you want me to do puzzles? He's like, 3 riddles in 2 minutes. So give me the answers and I'll give you the code for the lock. So goes to walk while he's beeping, and he can't walk a certain distance or else his head will fall off. Well, or explode. So the first one, when it's denied, so basically Batman tells him the answer to the first one. He's like, justice, yes. Okay, riddle number 2. You are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your blind eye? So at this point, it's like, how much did you get paid to look away? He's asking you, how much did it cost for you to turn your back? He's like, you got 58 seconds. He's like, how much? Batman's like, how much? He's like, 10 grand. Get a monthly payment. Blah, blah, blah. So basically 10 grand a month. Right, so here's the last one before time runs out. Since your justice is so select, please tell us which vermin you're paid to protect. He's like the rat, the informant from the Salvatore Moroni case. So got 20 seconds to answer this, and so either way he's telling him, he's like, I can't answer, I'll be dead either way. So this is very huge. He's got like 10 seconds or else that thing's gonna blow up, and Batman's trying to tell him like, he's like, it's the whole system and all that, and it's like, got 3 seconds or else it's gonna go off. And it goes off right in front of Batman as well, and it just goes to show you that Batman's suit is a miracle, because Batman should have died. Like, if that was based off of 100% realism, Batman should have died. And of course, he's passed out over here, which gives the cops the opportunity to unmask him and all that other shit, but they don't even do that, even though they kind of do when they get him back. But it's like, they don't even do that, even though they have the chance to. He's like incredibly lucky he should be dead. But they don't unmask him. So Batman manages to get up pretty quickly and surrounded by a shit ton of cops back at the police station. So, and then at this point they say that Coulson's blood is on his hands, but that's not the case. And he's telling them, he's like, he'd rather die than talk. What was he afraid of? You? So he suspects that the chief of police might be the guy that he's protecting, or that he was protecting. And at this point, it's like the cops are just all against Batman. The only one that's not against him is Gordon. But Gordon does something very clever here. So, so he pretends to be no different than them. So now Batman's like, oh, you too? You too now? He's like, Chief, let me handle this. So at this point, like, Gordon is pretending to be against Batman so that way he can get the guys to empty the room. And so that way it gives Batman a little bit of a chance of a breather and to escape. Pretty clever. And they make it look really good and everything too. So at this point, you know, Batman, he's like, you're gonna punch me in the face. And then he's like, get him out of there. So he's basically got like 2 minutes. So, but they have a little bit of a talk, which is pretty damn interesting. You know, because Batman is in police custody at this point. And then softly he's like, yeah, we got to get you out of here. Well, and then he's like, you got to punch me in the face. He's like, take this key. And then through that door, all the way to the stairs, go to the roof. So, and then this guy Kenzie comes in as a cop, and he's like, who's the guy with the mustache with the broken nose? He's like, I got into it with him in the cocktail lounge, or the iceberg lounge. So at this point, he's basically telling him that Kenzie moonlights as a cop. And then punches Gordon and gets out of there. And thankfully the door behind him was able to let the cop, well, was a short delay of the cops. And then he's just getting out of there, and he uses the grapple to get to the roof. And then what's interesting is it's not a clean escape. I dig that. It's like, it's not an easy, clean escape. Like, he makes it to the roof, and then he's really hesitant about jumping off the roof, but you know, and he obviously doesn't do it right away. Then you get that frightened look on his face, but he closes up his cape and jacket and everything like that in order to get out of there. Kind of, well, not parachute style, but still. But it's definitely not a clean escape, because he eventually ends up hurting himself. Because again, this is year 2. This is not, he hasn't perfected everything yet. He has a lot to learn. And then the parachute goes off, and then he gets hurt. Like, that should have fucking nearly killed him right there, that kind of impact. So, but it still shows the fact that he, like, didn't get out of there cleanly, which I dig. I dig it. I dig the fact that it's not perfect or whatnot. And again, he's, you know, he's like, could you have at least pulled that punch? And he's like, I did. Like, I don't trust any of your cops. And he's like, I only trust you. So at this point, there's definitely a really good relationship between Batman and Gordon to where they trust each other, which is good because it was basically established right now. It's like I only trust you. It's like they only trust each other because they see the corruptness and everything that goes on within their city and within the criminals and within the cops as well. Um, so at this point, another they need to have another conversation with the Penguin. So at this point, it's like if you want to find the Riddler, you got to find the Rat. So and then at this point, we're an hour and 16 minutes in. We're approaching the halfway point of the film, and we've seen so much Batman already. So much Batman. You got action scenes, you got some drama and stuff like that. You've seen some Catwoman. You haven't seen some Catwoman in a little bit, but she is about to make another appearance, which is great. So, like, there's like a lot in this film. Like, there's so much that goes on in this film, and we get to see so much Batman. It's ridiculous, which is great. Again, it's not a bad thing, especially with the way he's utilized. And there's already a handful of things that have happened in this movie already that are like big deals. So usually in films, in regular Batman films, you don't see nearly as much. You see less. It's almost as if they give you Batman in small drips or in small doses, but in this case it's different. It's like you're getting Batman the way you've always wanted him in terms of the amount that you want. And just seeing Batman do his thing. You know, and it kind of makes up for the fact that it's a year two Batman because a lot of people will be like, well, I'm used to Batman being so perfect. And it's like, well, that's not the case. This is year two. He's not going to be perfect. And there's Selena Kyle in her bike, and she has joined the party. So, and she's got a whip. So, and then I like what Batman says. He's like, oh, this just got complicated. Then Gordon's like, what do you mean? Got complicated. And then you see Selena kind of doing her thing with the whip and her with her martial arts skills, just taking out a couple of guys. So at this point right here, she wants to basically get rid of all this, and then she finds the body of the Russian girl, and she is scared. And Batman gets shot, but thankfully because of his suit, fine. But no matter how basic the suit is, like that suit can take quite a lot of damage, like a lot of damage. There's one scene later on where he just, assault rifles just fill him up with bullets and it just doesn't do anything. He just keeps walking at them. So, and then of course you got Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, as well, and he's got that walk too. He's got that walk going on. So, and he's not happy about people coming after his money. And then here we go. You see, that's a very nice sound. I love the sound of that. Like you get the engine rallying up of the Batmobile at this point. Very strong. It's not like it's different than the Batmobile, but man, this engine is really just starting to like light up. And it's like, yep, Batman's in there. And it stalls for a minute. But then once it gets going, it really gets going. But it's a powerhouse of a fucking car. It's still unique. And of course, it's got the flame in the back, which they've kept that, which is great because it's not just a car. It's like a jet engine as well, but it's very very athletic, and it's certainly a different take on the Batmobile, but not a bad one. It's not like, oh, what the fuck is this? This is kind of like, I don't know, kind of like a Charger with a jet engine and seemingly indestructible, but yet at the same time, it's still able to move fast as hell and do what it does. So get this little car chase sequence, which is always great. And it gives us action, but gives us a different flavor of action, which again is good. You know, for a film like this, you need different kinds of uh, different kinds of action, like different levels of action and different kinds. It's a necessity because with a film like this of this length, and when you see Batman this much, it's like you got to change it up. You got to change it up, or else the audience might get a little bored. And you do that by having a car chase. And then, you know, at the end of this car chase sequence, you get like probably the most iconic, if not one of the most iconic Batman moments, you know, to where, you know, he's getting out of the car and is starting to walk towards the wreckage, which was part of the trailer, obviously, and it was a big highlight of the trailer because it's like this, you know, you don't want to see Batman walking towards you like that. So pretty damn cool. Yep, and it's definitely a heavy duty Batmobile, that's for damn sure. And of course, the engine sounds badass, especially when he starts it up. It's badass. And Oswald's got to keep going, or else the Bat's gonna catch up to him. And they made it look good too. It's not like you see so many things to where you're like, yeah, right. No, it looks good. And I like the angles that they do with the camera. You get some side angles going on. You get uh, some front angles, and like I like it. You use your angles right with a car chase scene. It just makes it that much more visually appealing because ultimately that's what a car chase scene is all about. Really, it's like it's food for the eyes. It's eye candy. So Penguin's kind of stuck, and he's like, "Get out of the way!" And I love the shots of the Batmobile where you can see the engine. Pretty badass. I know people that are really into cars would be all about that shit. So, and then you get the all the different sound effects. Holy shit! Just noticed that. Like he's right in between those two Mack trucks and almost smashes him, but he barely gets out of there in time. And he takes a hit, and he's actually able to go through some shit. Not like the Ben Affleck Batmobile though, but still pretty cool how they did that. And then you had a boom boom explosion going on, and Penguin thinks he's gonna get away, but the Batmobile makes it and picks up speed to the point to where it's like, yep, I've had enough, and it just hits Penguin in the back and then flips the car over. So obviously, if that happened in real, if there's somebody really in there, it would have killed him. There's no doubt about it. There's no way any man would have survived that, especially the way Penguin did. There's just no way. And here comes the iconic shot with Batman getting out of the car, upside down view, and then you got the flame in the back. Slow motion walk towards Penguin. So it's like, yep, that's the iconic shot of the film. And then, of course, you get the main theme that goes, that basically just revs up as he gets closer. And at this point, again, Colin Farrell doing a great job. Gordon joins in on this one over here, so they interrogate Penguin. He's like, "What is this? Good cop, bad cop?" Really interesting, this interpretation of the Penguin. I'm not gonna lie. Again, so many characters. Again, this is year 2, so there's so many characters that at this point, like, they haven't made their full transition into those characters, right? I mean, Batman is still evolving. Catwoman is not Catwoman yet. Penguin isn't fully Penguin yet, at least, even though they call him that. Riddler is Riddler, but he doesn't have that look. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that all the characters in this film are actually evolving, like legitimately evolving, which is good. And he's like, El Rada Alada, are you him? He's like, yeah, not you. Stool Pigeon rumbles in the maze. Are you El Rada Alada? It says that he is. He's like, it's like the worst Spanish ever. Is like, what? It's La Rada. World's greatest detectives. Am I the only one who knows the difference between L and La? And I'm thinking, you think the Riddler made a mistake? He's like, nope, he doesn't make mistakes. Like, what about a bat? You ever think of that? You are El Rada. And then of course they do a little bit of internet. And there it is. It's like interesting, you're missing the big picture. It's like directly talking to the Riddler. And he says that his biggest victim is the biggest piece of the puzzle yet. He's like, dead victim? And he's like, he will be soon. Here's a clue to where you can find him. Grew up from a sea tough as a, and he tells him that's grew up from a sea tough as a rat. Mansion is a slum where I'll never know where I come from. Tough as a weed. An orphan. Says goodbye. A mansion in a slum. The old orphanage, the one that burned down. So they end up going to the orphanage. See, it really very much is like a detective story. Like going after clue after clue. Detective noir, as I like to call it. That's basically what this is. And we've never got that to this extent in a Batman film, which is what a lot of people about this film. And the fact that it's different. Because from Batman, a lot of people expect certain things. And in this film, they got it, but not the way that they thought they would. But doesn't mean they didn't like it, because they certainly did. And then upon entering this building, it's basically littered with Riddler's question marks and arrows and shit. Kind of reminds you a little bit of the Arkham games. It's like, damn, they like the movies have definitely taken some inspiration from the Arkham games, man. I'm telling you. And I liked when they entered the building. Uh, Batman's like, no guns. He's like, that's your thing, man. And again, over here, they enter this room, and then there's an old film playing to where I believe it is where Thomas Wayne himself announced his candidacy for mayor. And that's the thing too. Like apparently his dad was trying to run for mayor. And the next victim is Bruce Wayne. Go figure. And the phone is ringing, and Alfred's checking the mail. And for Bruce Wayne's eyes only. So Alfred opens it up. And it says for the Batman right there. And it's fireproof. And at this point, we notice that it's an explosion. And it's an explosive, but he threw it and then he ducked, but it still exploded and it still caused Alfred to be injured. But there were so many fans that thought that Alfred was going to die in this film, which would have been absolutely huge. But Alfred survived. And they're just hoping that he stabilizes after all that. So, and at this point, they just they asked the hospital personnel asked Bruce, "Is there anybody else that we should notify?" And he's like, "No, it's just me." Just realizes that he's the only one. It's just him and Alfred. And he starts putting the pieces together on the floor over here with some spray paint and just taking piece after piece of every single clue and just puts it all together. Tends to try to solve everything. Doing everything completely on his own this time. No help from Alfred or anything. Just Just some detective work. And then, of course, Bruce does some more digging about the renewal and about what Thomas Wayne was trying to do. Lots of old profiles, too. Old papers. And then through the speakers, there's a cat right there where she kept his tech. At this point, he needs to see her and talk to her. So, time to meet up. Again, I like the sunset theme to where the sun's about to go down. You get a little bit of that red. So at this point, she's like, "Yeah, I think you're going to help me find the cop and make him pay." It's like, "Yeah, I thought you were vengeance." And then he's trying to tell her, like, "Huh, that's so funny." He's like, she's like, "Whoever you are, you obviously grew up rich." All because he said consequences have choices. So, boom, there it is right there. They do have a relationship, but not like he thought. Falcone is her father. And that her mother worked at the 44 Below just like Annie did. So that's how it all tied together. So, very, very interesting how Falcone is her father. A nice little twist for what they did for this particular story and how it ties in. Like in Batman 1, they changed it to where Joker was the killer of Batman's parents, not Joe Chill. So in this film, they made Falcone Selena Kyle's father. I don't know if it's mentioned who her father is in the comics or if they did that recently or something like that, but um, I mean, if it is Falcone, then my mistake. But I think they did it to where it just fits in perfectly with this. So, and Batman actually apologizes, like, "I'm sorry for what I said." She's like, "It's all right. You assume the worst in people." And then she realizes that they're actually pretty much the same. And she's actually wondering who the hell he is under there. And she's like, "Are you just hideously scarred?" And he's like, "Yep." So she starts to say that maybe the psycho's right after to go after these creeps. And yet she has no idea that she's literally talking to Bruce, and rightfully so. And I like how they call him Vengeance at this point. She's like, come on, Vengeance. And he's like, don't make any moves without me. And then she kisses him. And she tells him, I can take care of myself. So, again, the character of Selena Kyle can definitely take care of herself. However, sometimes she just gets herself in a pickle sometimes. And I love it when he takes his mask off, wham bam, there's the makeup around his eyes. And then I like how you actually get to see some Thomas Wayne in the footage, which is great. Then you get the Arkhams and the Wayans. Oh, and then of course, um, there's some family secrets. Apparently, Martha Wayne murdered her own father or something like that. So I don't remember whether or not that was changed, but Bruce right now is pretty much shocked. You can look at his eyes. And now he's thinking that maybe his parents are a part of the problem or were a part of the problem. And again, Falcone and Wayne. So, and that's why the Riddler's after him. We need some more answers from you. Goodbye. And at this point, Bruce goes to the club and he's like, "You know who I am?" And they're like, "Yeah, you know you're Bruce Wayne." He's like, "I need to see Carmine home." So they let him in. He's Bruce Wayne. And he's basically a celebrity. So they're not going to mess with him. And at this point, he goes to Carmine to get answers. But at the same time, the question is, are you going to get the truth from a criminal? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. But the only one that you know that's going to give you the truth all the time is going to be Alfred. And thankfully, he survived, and thankfully, he gives him a piece. And at this point, everybody's dismissed, so that way they can talk. So Bruce wants to know, is it true? He's like, did you get rid of him for my father? Like, look, your father was in trouble. The reporter had some dirt, some very personal stuff about mom. And he didn't want it out before the election. And your father tried to pay the guy off, but he wasn't going for it. So, came to me. He said, Carmine, I want you to put the fear of God into this guy. And according to Carmine, when fear isn't enough, boom. So, like your father wanted me to handle it, so I did. So, I would say that, so at this point, he's like, yeah, you thought your father was a Boy Scout, but he's like, yeah, you'd be surprised. So, this is a very interesting twist on the whole mythology. But is it a twist or is it just something just to make the audience think? But at this point, the audience, for the first time ever, we are Bruce Wayne now. We're not Alfred. We're not an outsider. It's like we're seeing this from Bruce's eyes at this point. So it's like he's hearing the quote unquote truth from Carmine's voice. So, but at this point, they're like, maybe Maroni had Wayne killed, but he's like, he doesn't know that for a fact. So at this point, Bruce just came out with a ton of information. But the question is it the right information? Was his dad really kind of like maybe not so good, or maybe Maroni had him killed, or it makes sense in terms of the rest of the story arc in terms of Thomas Wayne trying to be mayor. And Bruce basically walks into what appears to be, I guess, his parents' room. Thankfully, Alfred finally wakes up. And then as soon as he wakes up, the first thing Bruce says is, "You lied to me." Like, you lied to me my whole life. And I'm sure Alfred's like, talking about. He's like, I spoke to Carmine. And he's like, he told me what he did for my father. And about Maroni. He, he said that Sergeant Maroni has dad killed. And he's like, why didn't you tell me all? He's like, I spent all these years fighting for my father, believing that he was a good man. And then Alfred basically tells him he was a good man. He's like, listen to me, your father was a good man. He made a mistake. He's like, he had a man killed. Why? Protect his family image? Political aspirations? He's like, nope. He didn't have anybody killed. He was protecting your mother. He didn't care about his image, the campaign, or anything. He cared about mom and you. And in a moment of weakness, he turned to Falcone, but he never thought Falcone would kill that man. And your dad should have known that Falcone would have done anything, because that's who Falcone is. And that was your father's mistake. When Falcone told him what he'd done, your father was distraught. He was going to go to the police and then he would confess everything. That's what he told Falcone. And that very night, your father and your mother were killed. And that's the truth. And he's like, it was Falcone. And nobody knew for sure. I wish I knew for sure. Maybe it was some random thug on the street. So at this point, man, they're really just playing it perfect in terms of the lore of who killed Batman's parents. And they're tying it in with this story here. And it's really nice how they kind of did a twist. And at this point, it's like and at this point, it's a very, very interesting take on the story. Very clever and good for the writers too. I like that they did. And then in this scene right here, you get this really emotional moment between Bruce and Alfred to where, he tells him, then he looks up and there's the light in the sky now. But the good news is that not only that Alfred made it, but Bruce now knows the truth thanks to Alfred. And it was twisted by Falcone. Go figure. That's what happens, basically. Characters like that in stories, they kind of twist the truth a little bit in order to take advantage. Somebody activated the bat signal, and it wasn't Alfred. And actually, it was Selina. And she's beating the shit out of a dude that she found. And we're in about 2 hours. We're almost at 2 hours into this film, and we still have like another hour to go. And at this point, this guy over here is just, I mean, they're just hearing the cell phone recording over here, to where it basically gives them everything they want to know in terms of what happened to the girl. And then at this point, Falcone wants to know the information that he needs to know. And then from there on out, she starts talking. And then, of course, there's and then Falcone is like, yeah, it's revealed from this recording alone. Like, it puts a lot in the viewer's imagination and the hearer's imagination. So it's like, yep, Falcone is really a ruthless motherfucker. Falcon. He has wings too. So wham bam, they were referring to Falcone or Falcone. And everybody works for Falcone from Renewal. And basically, once the renewal thing worked out for Wayne, they all got in on it. So it was basically $1 billion worth of money. Because that's how much the Wayne pledged, which is a lot of money because I think the Waynes are only worth like 3 billion. Well, only, but they pledged 1 billion. So basically, Falcone's kind of been like the mayor for the last 20 years. Well, when you look at it like that. And at this point, Batman's trying to tell Selina, like, don't kill him. You know, that's not the way. It's like you'll become just like him if you do. That's the line. And that's the one thing with Batman in this film. I don't think Batman kills anybody in this film. Because in every single Batman film, it's like in every single Batman film, somebody's always died at his hands. So, um, in this film, I have to say, I don't think Pattinson's Batman kills anybody. He gets close, he gets hella close, but no. Again, always showing that Selina's going everywhere on a bike. And of course, she's armed with a weapon. She doesn't want to listen to Batman. She still wants to kill somebody. And another wig. And she has to go see him. It's like, hey, he's not seeing anybody. He's like, tell him it's about Annika. And then all of a sudden, she's let up. And somebody knocked the front door at the Iceberg Lounge. And nobody's there, but the guard comes out anyway. I don't know. Yep. Smart. Batman, well, not Batman, but Bruce Wayne just enters in that way. And then he's got to find the bathroom, I guess, and kind of change. So, very clever way to get in. And at this point, Selina's pretending like she's looking for a friend, even though she knows what's going on. So, and she's like, I know you're an important man, so maybe you can help me find her or something like that. And at this point, that recording that she listened to where he killed the girl, is actually all over the news now. And he's about to see it. He was actually just informed by one of his guys that yep, the recording of Falcone. And Selena gets up and she wants to basically, take the gun out and kill the dude. And her outfit right here, except for the wig, actually kind of looks like almost like Halle Berry's uh, leather Catwoman outfit from the top. And she's like, "Hey, Dad," and he's like, "What?" He's like, "I'm Maria Kyle's kid." Like, "Yep, you remember her?" And she basically goes to pull the trigger, but I guess she misses. She's like, trying to avenge her mother at the same time. But she misses because I guess the lights go out around the time when she pulls the trigger, and she's able to take the one guy out, which is nice. 3 really quick kicks, and then Falcone just tries to get out of there. But not a very good shot, and plus she can't see the target very clearly, so then we get an in the shot and then in the dark shot to where the lights are out and bad guys have got their guns pointed over here and Batman could be there, but you don't know yet. And he is. And then I like this scene right here to where they're just firing their guns at him and he just walks straight and then manages to take them out. Really cool scene with the actually reminds me of the movie Equilibrium. If you guys remember the movie Equilibrium, you'll understand what I mean. Like the very first action scene in Equilibrium. To where a man walks in a room that's completely pitch black and you don't see anything except for the firing of the guns and he's the only one standing. Except Batman doesn't use guns. And Falcone managed to sneak up on Selena and get a hit in with the cue ball or with the cue stick. And at this point, he's about to murder his own flesh and blood at this point, and he says he doesn't want to, but he's doing it anyway. And her nails, thank goodness, kind of save her or buy her some time. Buys her some time for a few seconds. But Batman gets there just in time to knock out the dude, saving her in the process. But she still wants to take a gun and blow his head off, and he's stopping her at this point, because again, no killing. And at the same time, she'd pay if she were to commit that crime. So it's like, hey, haven't you paid enough? So she understands where he's coming from, and she kind of finally lets go. And Falcone is basically getting ready to go into custody at this point. And of course, the criminal laugh and the smile, of course. And he's like, he's still expecting to get away with everything. He's like, whatever I've done is going with me. So in other words, he's not going to talk. And then at this point, he's like, yep, you boys in blue work for me. And Gordon is just kind of like smiling. And there's cops out right there in the front. And he's like, I guess we don't all work for you. So there are some good cops, despite the fact that there's a bunch of bad ones as well. And being told his Miranda rights. And of course, he's like, "Yep, I'll see you when I walk out." And then Oswald Cobblepot's not happy with it, calling him a rat. And maybe and then at this point, Oz would take over. And then Oz goes to shoot him, and Batman basically seemingly saves Falcone from getting shot, but he's shot anyway because he didn't get shot from the Penguin. And then he remembers the riddle. He's like, bring him into the light, you'll know where I'm at. And bam, you got the shots that came out from another building in the corner. And he was there the whole time. Nice little twist as we get closer to the ending of this film. And Falcone is basically done. And to a certain extent, Selina is kind of relieved. At least she didn't have to do it, and it happened that way. And then Batman tries to get into the apartment where the shots came from as fast as possible, but obviously doesn't make it in time. So again, in this scene, you kind of see like a little bit of everything. Either this is where the Riddler lives, or he's just got one little setup over here. Like every single apartment in this, like every single regular apartment in this city is just so dark. Like really dark. But he's nowhere to be found. But the cool thing is he's not very far. That's the interesting thing. Not very far at all. And apparently somebody saw him go to the corner diner. So a neighbor, I guess, saw him and reported it. And there he is. Glasses, green hoodie, and a cappuccino, I guess. And he's like, I just ordered a slice of pumpkin pie, and then they just take him away. But he's got kind of a contingency plan to a certain extent. Kind of. And he's got the smile now that he sees Batman because he sees Batman as the good guy. So there's two of them. So got two different IDs. So they're like, hey, which one are you? Which one are you? But he's Edward Nygma. That's what he's supposed to be. You got that little cappuccino with the big question mark right there. Cute. And Batman, of course, walks in to do a little bit of detective work along with the cops. And this time they're not pushing him out. And he's not, well, I'm sure Gordon is probably in there, but they're not they're not really pushing him out or whatnot. They know that he's part of the good guy group and he's not, you know. So he's gonna look around and do his own thing. Well, Gordon's there in there too, but Edward Nashton, forensic accountant. So at this point, I think they figure out here that it's not quite over yet. And I really love how there's like so much more to this. It's like you think they caught Riddler and it's over, but it's very apparent that it's not. And there's a bat in a cage. But there's something else. Not just the bat, but there's something else. Yep. Another envelope to the Batman. Another riddle, another question mark for Batman to solve. And they found the murder weapon. And, well, actually, the envelope tells even more. So, ooh, my confession. So, yep, not over yet. And then he's got followers online, and those guys are kind of a part of his posse at this point. And there's one point in time where Bruce thinks that he's Batman, and he thinks that he's the last target. And then Gordon gets a call and looks at Batman, and he's asking, yep, of course, he wants to talk to Batman in Arkham. Go figure. And Batman just walks up to Gordon. He's like, "You're a good cop." And here we are in Arkham. Get a little bit of a face-to-face between Riddler and the Batman. And again, you can tell in this scene that he's mesmerized by Batman. And he's obviously obsessed with him. And at this point, this is the moment to where he thinks that he's calling him Bruce Wayne because he thinks he's, he thinks that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Batman's looking at the camera. And he says he's the only one we didn't get. And everybody was talking about poor old Bruce Wayne. They were talking about Thomas, and then poor old Bruce Wayne, and then they call him, and then they're like orphan, and then that's when like Edward over here, like he's like the true orphan. He's like living in a tower over the park, isn't being an orphan, looking down on everybody with all that money. Got that interesting point of view. And then he goes over like what he's like, you know what being an orphan is? 30 kids to a room, 12 years old, and already dopamine, numb the pain. We wake up screaming with rats chewing our fingers. Wow. So yeah, this guy definitely grew up. It's like, yep, completely different than what Bruce Wayne went to. But nope, everybody cared about Bruce Wayne, didn't care about us. Let's talk about the billionaire. And then at this point, Batman still thinks that he thinks that he's Bruce Wayne. And then he says he's the only one that we didn't get. And then he just looks at him and he's like, okay. He doesn't know. Thank goodness. And he's admiring Batman's mask. That's really funny right here. He's like, all they want to do is unmask you, but they're missing the point. It's like, I'm looking at the real you right now. We both know that. And he's like, the mask allowed me to be myself completely without shame or anything. Again, very, very nice that he notices that. Like, he's like, we both know I'm talking to the real you right now. And he's like, we did this together. And Batman's like, no, we didn't. He's like, I'm not physical. My strength's not up there. So he kind of used Batman in order to make up for that. Very, very interesting. Sorry about that sound. Microphone fell. And at this point, Batman is just calling him completely out. He's like, you're a psychopath. And then, of course, he's like, no, no, I'm not. And again, the actor is doing such a great job. He's like, oh, this was not the way it was supposed to go. And then he starts saying that he was, that he had it all planned out. And then we could watch the whole thing together, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, watch what? He's like, everything. And then he realizes, he's like, oh, you have no idea. Like, it was all there. He's like, you didn't figure it out? And he didn't. There's something else going on that he doesn't know. He's like, oh, you're not as smart as I thought you were. He's like, what have you done? What's black and blue and dead all over? You. So at this point, here we go. We got the main event. Riddler's done something, and he's got no idea what he's done. And Batman's just really pissed off at this point. Again, the actor playing the Riddler is just doing such a great fucking job. It's like really playing the psychopath part really well. And then Batman makes his way back to the crime scene to where the Riddler's room was. Because there's something he missed. Because he hasn't figured it out yet, so he's got to figure it out. And then Martinez comes out of nowhere and he's like, what are you doing here? And it's like, the answer's pretty obvious, dude. It's like, you know why I'm here. Trying to figure out some shit. And he's like, I don't think you should be touching that. And then Batman just looks at him. And then Martinez, I think, kind of gave him a clue and like that he didn't know about. So talking about a carpet install. And then at this point, he realizes that there's probably something under the carpet or under the rug. So he takes a look. Martinez is like, what the hell are you doing? And then it's revealed something else going along, something else happening all along. So the plans were literally right on their feet, right underneath them. So he basically wants to flood Gotham. He's got bombs all over the city and he wants to flood Gotham. And that's the password to the code to unlock the internet video that he has for all of his followers. So basically, there's a whole bunch of guys out there just like him that want what he wants. So yeah, basically he's got bombs all around the city that are basically going to flood the entire city at this point. And at this point, now he knows. Now Batman knows what's really up, and go figure, it's happening now. Like, too late. First one's going off, first bomb's going off, and then bam, floodgates are going to start pouring in. And there he is in his jail cell, basically going boom, as in mission accomplished. And yep, Gotham is pretty much going to be flooded. And now it's like you got a whole bunch of Riddler copycats over here, armed as well, using similar attire, obviously. That probably want to take the mayor out and then the other city and stuff. So, yep. And these guys are armed to the teeth. And these guys are all probably orphans, just like he was. I'm willing to bet that that's, well, I'm willing to bet that that is the case. And Batman disappears. So we got about 29 minutes left of this film. And man, am I getting really sleepy, but I'm hanging in there in order to complete this commentary. I was at the halfway point, I was debating on doing 2 parts, but decided against it. I wanted to do it all in one shot. So, kind of tough when you're very sleepy and you want to fall asleep at any minute, but we're going to go through it. And then the flood is pretty much all over Gotham City now, and all the cops are trying to figure out what to do, and nobody knows what to do. And all they know is they got to get the mayor elect out of there, the woman who wants to make a change, the one that talked to Bruce Wayne briefly about philanthropy. And then you got one of the guys in the Riddler costumes that's basically armed with a sniper rifle and a shit ton of ammunition. And yeah, they're ready to go to town. All of them are armed, actually. And at this point, Gordon's basically telling her that we need to get her out, and she obviously refuses. And then she looks up and then she realizes, oh, that somebody's going to shoot her. And they did. And Batman manages to get right in there and he starts taking all these guys out, which is pretty cool. Takes a few shots here and there, but nothing like a straight shot or anything. And then you start to see him taking out a whole bunch of guys, which is nice in this different setting. And for the most part, these guys are easy targets too because they don't know anything about combat or anything like that. So, but again, doesn't kill anybody. Takes a few shots and now he's pissed. The action and fighting sequences in this movie are very interesting and unique. Oh, and then right here now he gets dragged back by the back of his cape, which we haven't seen in a Batman film, and then he kind of reverses it and kicks. And thank goodness that these guys don't know combat very well, and firearms as well. Because if they did, it would have been a lot tougher for the Batman. Because ultimately, these are just the Riddler fanboys that just basically got the costumes and they're doing what they're doing. So, to join Riddler in his crusade. And there's Selina, and she sees Batman hanging from the distance, and she wants to find a way to get up there to help him. And then he plants an explosive behind a gas on a fire hydrant, which causes like the smoke effect that you see from the trailers. And then he continues to take other guys out, which is pretty cool. And in this last scene, oh, and he gets shot like from really close range with a shotgun, which actually blows, like it takes him back several feet, which was really a really nice effect. It's like, yeah, you take a shot like that from a shotgun, you're definitely going to go down. And he definitely took the impact of that. Didn't kill him, but he's in a lot of pain and he's kind of hanging on for dear life at this point. And he's actually about to get shot right in the cowl with that same old shotgun that probably would kill him. But Catwoman basically gets there just in time and saves his butt. Because ultimately, what ended up getting him so weak is the fact that he took a shotgun blast, like a close blank range, and yeah, thank goodness for his armor. So yeah, Batman at this point took a really big hit. And he gets a kiss from Catwoman despite the fact that he's about to pass out. Took such a big hit with that shotgun. And then one of Riddler's guys takes Selina and is about to like beat her badly or whatnot. She's like in danger at this point, and he's too weak to be able to do anything. So he's got himself a little last resort that he gets from his utility belt, and it's adrenaline. And he opens up a weak part of the suit so that way he could take that adrenaline and he goes nuts at this point. And he just wails on this guy in the head like numerous times to the point to where they all have to like Gordon and everybody just has to stop him. But he's running on pure adrenaline at this point. And this is the scene where it's very pivotal. Like Batman realizes at this point right now that he um he's kind of been going about it all wrong in a sense, to a certain extent. Like he's had kind of like the wrong kind of influence on the city. So they unmask that guy and they're like, "Who in the hell is you?" And "Who in the hell are you?" And then he's like, smiles and he's like, "I'm vengeance." And then as soon as Batman hears that, he turns around and he looks at him and he's like, "Oh shit." He's like, I've inspired people to do this or to take this path. So he kind of realizes what the Riddler's been saying all along. He's like, that's how he's a part of this. Because the whole thing is like all these villains, like all these quote unquote super villains, kind of came around because Batman has kind of been that influence. He didn't mean to be that influence, but that's what ended up happening. So with that one guy saying I'm vengeance, it just changed everything. Like Batman realizes that, you know, that hey, maybe I've been going about this all wrong. Maybe I've been, you know, so and then of course the flood overtakes everything and then Batman decides to at this point he cuts himself loose from the wire and falls right in the water in order to help the people that are in the water. And at this point, it's like, this is where the people, for like the first time, they start to realize that, Batman's actually a good guy. Not a bad guy. He's a good guy. He fights for the people and he actually cares for the people. And in an upcoming scene that we'll see here in a few minutes, is like the first time we see that. See, like when you see people right there as he's coming closer, like they're scared. They start to like walk away. Like everybody's scared. So again, he's offering his hand to help people. They're very hesitant at first, because they're afraid of him. But hey, the first person to reach out for the hand is the kid. And he helps the kid. And then of course another person reaches their hand out and so on and so forth. It's there. So right there, right then and there, without any words, it's this particular scene right here to where it's like, okay, Batman is a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's not a murderer. He's not, um, he's not a criminal. He's not none of these things. He's a good guy. So at this point, they start to follow him. He's got the light, but they're starting to follow him. He helped them out, and then starting to get out of there. And very very important scene. This whole the city's definitely been underwater thanks to the Riddler. And you see a dog swimming underwater. I didn't see that. So then you got the National Guard on its way. Martial law is in effect. But the criminal element never sleeps. That's true. And then, Oswald Cobblepot's pretty much going to probably be the next big guy in charge at this point. Because Batman says someone's going to seize a chance, and then the camera pretty much goes all around Oswald Cobblepot. So, but then he's also talking about rebuilding people's faith, and very important. And in this upcoming scene here, there's like you see Batman, he's carrying somebody. He's carrying a woman over to where she needs to be taken away by a helicopter in order to get medical help or whatnot. So and then she's afraid of letting go of him. She actually grabs him, and then he's like, he just nods to her. He's like, it's okay. So he manages to calm her down a little bit before she gets lifted to get into the helicopter to get out of there. So again, um, and it's known throughout the news that the masked vigilante, known as Batman, basically is out there helping save lives. And then in this scene right here, we get a little bit of Riddler in his cell, and he's talking to somebody. Well, talking to himself at first, I guess. Oh no, it's somebody else talking to him. It's the Joker. It's like one day you're on top of the world, and the next day you're the clown. So Joker and Riddler right next to each other in different cells. Go figure. They actually had an entire scene with the Joker, but they cut it out for whatever reason. But I'm pretty sure it's a deleted scene in the DVD or Blu-ray or whatnot. So, but I'm watching this on HBO Max. So, like, riddle me that. Who are you? He's like, well, riddle me this. That's the question. The less of them you have, the more one is worth. Friend, maybe? I don't know. Yep, friend. And he starts laughing. And I bet at the theater fans must have gone nuts over that. I saw this movie at the theater, but I don't know. I don't remember. Well, it was a really late showing, so I don't remember if there was any reaction or whatnot, but people knew it was a Joker. And here we are with one of the more last scenes, and then Batman, and we cut to Selina looking at her parents' graves for a second, and then she's basically leaving Gotham, and she's going upstate, I guess, maybe Bloodhaven, and Batman's like, "Hey, you leaving? Like, you asking me to stay?" But he doesn't. And then she basically tells him, it's never going to change. Even with Falcone gone, it's, going to be a big power grab. And he knows. He believes that the city can change, but she doesn't. And he has to try. And then she tells him that it's eventually going to kill him. And she asks him to go with her and get into some trouble, knock off some CEO hedge fund types, and be fun. The bat and the cat. And then he looks at her, and then he looks up at the sky, and he sees the light. Sees the symbol. And then she looks back at him, and he's like, who am I kidding? You're already taken. You're already spoken for. So basically, at the end of the day, Batman is married to Gotham, you know. And in this upcoming scene, the very last scene of the film, in my opinion, is where Bruce makes the final transition into becoming the Batman, in my opinion. Because at this point, they're both taking their bikes and they go their separate ways. Bruce goes one way, Selina goes to the other. Bruce is heading back to Gotham, and Selina's probably going to Bloodhaven. You know, he wants to go with her, but he doesn't. And then in his mirror, he sees Selina, kind of disappearing as they drive further apart from each other. And then once she is completely out of his point of view, he looks straight ahead. He's got that look in his eye, and then he picks up the speed on his bike, and then that's the end of the film. And that's what we're about to see here. They're kind of driving side by side at this point, and then when they go their separate ways, that's when you see the transition go. That's when you see the transition happen, because he kind of looks in his mirror, and he's almost kind of sad, and then he looks ahead, and he just starts picking up speed, heading back towards Gotham, and he's got that look in his eye towards like, all right, kick ass. So, and to me, that symbolizes that this very moment is like the last transition that he makes into the Batman, because he's chosen Gotham over what he wants. What he really wants as Bruce Wayne is to go with her, and then at the same time, duty calls. So, yeah. And the screen goes black. But yeah, that's the Batman. And that very last moment right there, in my opinion, was his final transition into actually being the Batman. So in the second film, I don't know who the villain's going to be. It could be anybody. It might be Victor Freeze. You never know. But ultimately, or it could be Oswald, obviously taking over. But yeah, I'm really interested to seeing where they're going to take the character and where they're going to take the story, and what Robert Pattinson does with it. So, it is time for me to go to sleep. I've been fighting sleeping for the last hour, but I'm glad to go through with it. So we watched it all in one sitting and commentated over it. But that was the Batman. I really like this take. Very different and very welcomed, and I just have a good feeling that with the sequel that they're going to do a good job. So only time will tell. I think Robert Pattinson has a lot to offer the role, and I think Matt Reeves and the writers as well have a lot to offer the role, and in terms of where they're going. So I'm looking forward to it in time. But until then, I'm going to try to get some sleep. So I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. Let me know down below what you thought of the Batman, and I'll catch you later. Have a good rest of your day.